Hi, this is a tutorial for actually just sitting down comfortably on your mat. It may sound a bit silly, but there's quite a lot of us who find it quite difficult to sit cross-legged. And this may be just because you're very tight or in the hips, or it might actually be the formation of your hip joints. So there may be things that you can do to help it and so that you can sit on the ground, but the important thing is not to think, oh, I can't do yoga if I can't cross my legs. So today we're going to go over a few tricks to help you sit more comfortably with your legs crossed. If you already are very comfortable sitting like this for a few minutes, then maybe you can just leave it, you don't need to watch this. But sometimes, especially if we like to meditate or we're sitting for a long time doing something like yin yoga, we can sit for the first few minutes with our legs crossed quite comfortably, but then after a while it becomes very uncomfortable. We start to round the spine, we start to sink and we shift and we move and we make lots of noise. So a neat little trick that if for the first few breaths it feels okay, but then afterwards you start to really feel it in your hip flexors, is just to take a small cushion. You can use a bolster, you can use a nice flat one like I do, or you can use a brick, whichever feels comfortable. And you just pop it under your bum and it just lifts your hips up so it helps them open more. You can already see that my knees are closer to the ground. It makes it feel more comfortable, helps you to open your chest up, helps you to bring your shoulders over your hips so that you're not rounding yourself. And then again, also, it tilts your pelvis so that your pelvis is moving forward, not backwards. Because what happens is if some of us are tight in our hip flexors and we're sitting on the ground, it's very difficult for us to sit up straight. And automatically what we do is we don't necessarily sit up straight. We lean forward because it's uncomfortable here, or we round our spine and then our pelvis is tilting, the top of our pelvis is tilting back, the bottom is tilting forward. So maybe you're very open here in the hips, but your spine, your pelvis naturally tilts like this. So if you do find that your back is sticking out, then you definitely need to sit up on a cushion, and then you can see and you'll be able to feel that it helps to tilt your pelvis in the opposite direction so you can sit up nice and straight. You can use whatever height works for you. And that's just a little trick to make it a bit more comfortable. I would recommend, depending on how high your knees are, so if your knees are quite low, quite open, you'll only need a very small cushion. If your knees are quite high, take something nice and high. Sit it under your bum. You can have it on the highest level, and then your hips will fall open like so. Not necessarily straight away, but it will help to bring your knees down so that it feels more comfortable, and it will be very yin-like for the tissues in your hip flexor. It will help them gently open in their own time. So that's for if you're sitting cross-legged. Now there are some people who just can't sit cross-legged, and that's perfectly okay because particularly in the Western culture, it's not a natural position for us. There are many of us who haven't sit with our legs crossed since we were in primary school. So if that really doesn't work for you and you just can't do it, sit with your legs open. It's perfectly okay to have your legs straight out in front of you. The thing to pay attention to here is, again, to make sure that your back, you're not leaning forward, your shoulders are over your hips, and that you're not letting your lower back sink down. So again, this will depend on your hip flexors, because with the legs open, we tend to engage them more than we do with our legs crossed. So it's really important that if your legs are straight, that you have something underneath your bum to help bring your pelvis into the right posture. And you will feel, it will instantly release that pressure that you feel in your hip flexors. So if you do have your legs straight, but you want to get to a place where you can have them crossed, then you need to work on opening up the hips. So I've got a couple of videos up here which you can do, things like anything in the title with hip openers. ITB is really important, but anything that works on opening up the upper half of your leg. Yin is fantastic. So that's how to sit with your legs crossed. We'll do a second sitting position, which is coming onto the knees. So this again is an alternative for anyone who doesn't find crossed legs comfortable, who really doesn't enjoy having the legs straight out in front, and come to sit on the knees. However, this does come with its own host of tricks and challenges. So for some people, this is natural. This is incredibly comfortable, and we can sit here for hours. For many of us, this is different because we're putting a lot of pressure on different points. So knees are the trickiest part. So if you do feel discomfort in your knees because you're not accustomed to sitting like this, what you can do is you can pop a nice thin cushion between your calves and your bum. And that takes that pressure off your knee, gives your knees a little bit more space. So there's a little bit less pressure on your knees. The pressure is coming further back. And you're a little bit higher and you can sit nice and straight. If that still isn't comfortable, if that's too much for you, or you just don't like the sensation of having that pressure on your calves or the backs of your thighs, for some people it can compress the blood flow. Take a brick or a bolster. You can just use the bolster this time. Pop it between your legs and then sit on the bolster. And then all the pressure is going into that bolster, that bum, that will immediately take the pressure off your knees. And because your bum is a little bit higher, you won't have so much weight in the front there. So that's usually the main one that people struggle with. The second thing is that we've got a lot of stretching going on in the ankles and the tops of our feet. So if anyone who does ballet, you'll be fine. But if you don't do ballet, it took me a while to learn this as well, you can sometimes feel a bit of pressure, a bit of discomfort in the tops of the feet. So what you can do is grab a towel, roll it up, and then just pop it under that arch where the ankle joins the arch of the foot. And that helps to lift your ankle up so you've not got so much pressure on the top of your foot, so that you're not pulling that tissue along the top of your foot, and it should help to take the pressure off. Some people find it really uncomfortable, but some people find it incredibly helpful. So test it out, see what works for you. And then eventually you should be able to sit nice and comfortably, gradually lowering down into this posture for seated, which is lovely because it keeps your body nice and long, torso nice and long. It's just very, very comfortable for sitting down. So, those are 2 or 3 different ways that you can sit at yoga. And like I say, it's one of those things you really don't think about. It's quite basic, but the beginning of almost every yoga class is start in a comfortable seated position. So play around with what you have at home. You don't necessarily have to have all this equipment. You can use books, you can use cushions from your sofa, you can use cushions from your bed. Find what works for you and play. So I hope this has been helpful. And if you want to learn more about other postures, you can check out my other tutorials. Thanks.